everybody, welcome back. Here we go with Mixed Media Altered card number 3. If you are new to the challenge, it's very simple. We're just altering a deck of cards. You can jump in anytime you want. There's no deadline, there's no time constraint, there's no set number of cards you have to do. Just jump in and have fun, and you can post your finished work to Instagram. We're using the hashtag YTCardChallenge. So if you tag me or use that hashtag, I'll be able to see what you're doing. And feel free to use the link in the description box below for my Facebook page. And you can post your work there as well if you don't have Instagram. So come on along and let's make some cards. So to start, I grabbed this little Cecilia card from my deck of Old Maid cards and gathered up some junk pieces that I wanted to put on top of the card. It's just going to be kind of a industrial sort of steampunky look a little bit. So I have a button and I have a couple of Tim Holtz gears, paper clip. You can see it there, that little arrow I showed you a couple minutes ago. Where the arrow and the gears came from. And so then I started to put matte medium on my card, but I had too much water in my brush from a previous project, so I wiped it off. I'm just starting over again. So I'm just giving the card a coat of matte medium just to make sure that everything sticks really well, because the cards have a fairly glossy surface. If you don't have matte medium, you can just use fine sandpaper and just kind of scuff up the face of the card and take some of the shine off, and then I just dried it off. And then I just flipped it over and put matte medium on the other side, on the back side as well, and dried that off. And I found as I'm doing these cards that they do have a tendency to lay flatter and not curl if you apply medium to both sides of the card. So that's what I did. So I have a tub of homemade texture paste, and I am just going to apply that all over the face of this card with this little plastic palette knife or spatula. It's a little scraper, I guess is what it is. Anything that you have, that a palette knife or silicone brush, whatever you want to put it on with. I wanted to get some texture going, so I've had this texture paste for quite a while and it's still staying nice and open. It's not drying out at all. I have it in that little plastic container with a lid, and then I put it in a Ziploc bag, and so far so good. I think I have a video somewhere back a ways of how to make that. There's lots of recipes for homemade texture paste. I did it with baby powder and glue, I think, and I forget what else, but it turned out good. I put some paint in it so it wasn't totally white. So then you can start the drying process, but it's really best to leave this sit for a few hours and dry on its own. You'll get better results, but I'm the impatient artist, so I used my heat tool and dried it. So now the texture paste is dry. I am going to use the Jo Sonja's crackle paste or crackle liquid. It produces fairly fine cracks. I have a golden crackle medium, but the instructions say to let it dry for 3 or 4 days, and ain't nobody got time to wait for that, so I very seldom use that. I'm going to, I think, try the Deco. Deco art, everybody says that that's really great, and I think the texture paste from Deco art also produces cracks, or the crackle paste you can put on thick and it kind of takes the place of these 2 steps that I'm doing. But anyway, I use the Jo Sonja's, and right there you see me brushing over it, which is a no-no. Once you put it down, you shouldn't go back and brush over it because you'll get less cracks. This medium you can dry with the heat tool. which I did, but I didn't get very good cracks. Some fine ones. So everything is dry, and I'm taking fluid acrylic in Prussian blue hue. I watered it down a lot, and I'm just putting a wash over top of that crackle medium to try to get some color on the texture and down in the cracks that did form, which kind of hard to see on camera because the cracks are so fine. And then I just blotted it back a little bit with the baby wipe just to get a little more of a mottled look to it. And actually, I like it. I would have preferred some bigger cracks, but you know, it is what it is. Crackle paste, you just never know what you're going to get. So once that side was dry, I just flipped it over and just put a wash of that Prussian blue hue on the back as well. And I like the transparency of the fluid acrylics. You can see the design on the back of the card through the paint, which I really like. Gotta try to make the backs pretty too, at least I do. And there it is. I don't think you can still see the crackles, but the texture paste worked well to give me some texture. There, I focused. You can see tiny little cracks. So that's okay. Now refocus. Now it's time to get some color on all those embellishments that I'm going to use, all the junk and stuff. So I have this little just vintage Jello mold that I use all the time just to catch excess paint and whatever. So I have some alcohol ink in the color Mushroom, and I am just going to try to get a coat of alcohol ink pretty evenly all over each of those pieces, and I will just speed this up. So as you saw, I was just throwing each of those pieces into the container after I covered them with the alcohol ink. Then I added some ink on top of them and kind of mixed them around. So after all of the alcohol ink pieces were dried, I started to glue them to the card. And I just did this off camera. I don't think that you need to watch me glue, but I used E6000 glue and glued all the embellishments, there you see them, onto the card. I have a piece of chain and some punchinella and a little paper piece on there with the telephone on it. So everything is glued down, and now I am going to add some drips. So I have Prussian blue hue and burnt umber, and I'm just kind of going in to each one to create kind of a muddy blue color, and I'm going to first just apply that all over and really tone back the blue that I have on there already and try and get some darker paint in and around all of those embellishments. So that's my first post gluing step. Well, there's some string on there too, just a couple pieces of string. So then before it could start to dry very much, I blotted it back, and then that way you can see some of that lighter blue that is on there as the first layer, and the mixture of the blue and brown just kind of gives more of an aged look, I think, to the paint color. So now I have this really old bottle of um, antiquing medium in a patina finish. You could use watered down chalk paint or a matte finish of like a turquoise paint, or mix it with a little bit of matte medium to take the shine away. But I wanted to do just that. I wanted it all to be less shiny, and I wanted it to have a little bit of a patinated look. But first I'm going to cover the whole thing with a coat of matte medium just to protect everything in case this old antiquing stuff doesn't work well. I'll be able to wipe it off and not disturb the layers underneath. Okay, now we'll go for the patinated, that kind of copper patina turquoisey color. And I did mix it with some matte medium because I didn't want it to be real opaque. I wanted to make sure that it would flow and spread out where I wanted it, because I didn't want it everywhere. I just kind of concentrated on the high spots and on parts of the embellishment pieces. And I like the way it turned out. And I think without that darker paint mixture underneath this, it would have been just like way too turquoisey bright. So that definitely helped get the overall look that I was going for. And I just dabbed it a bit with the paper towel just to get some of the heavier applications off where I wanted to lighten it up a little bit. And then I just dried that off with the heat tool. You could use a hair dryer too. Either way, be careful with the heat tool though, because it gets really hot and those metal embellishments are just really smoking hot, so don't burn yourself. So now we'll make some drips. I think I said I was making drips before, but I wasn't. I lied. Got ahead of myself. So I have the Prussian blue hue again and some burnt sienna, and they're both fluid acrylic colors, and I'm just really watering them down a lot because I just want to get some drips going kind of randomly around some of those embellishments, needing to add even more water here because it wasn't dripping. If you get your brush really full and just press against where you want the drip to start, it should just come off your brush and run down the tag. If you watch me at all, you know I do this a lot in my art journals because I really love the look of it. It's fun to do. So I did some in blue and dried that off, and it will dry lighter. And then I did some in the burnt sienna. So last I grabbed my Deco Art metallic luster, and I just have a tiny little bit on the end of my finger. A little bit goes a long way. And I am just putting small highlights of that gold on all of the metal embellishments, just to kind of give a hint that once they were new and shiny, but now they're not anymore. And that's it. You see I put the grommet in the upper left hand corner already. And that's basically it. You could keep going and going. You could spatter this now with maybe some black, which would be cool. I didn't think of that till just now, but I could have done that. So I hope you enjoyed watching this altered card process. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Share the video with your friends. I'd really appreciate that. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I'd be appreciative of that as well. And I hope you join in on this altered card challenge. Just jump in whenever you want. Do whatever you want and show me what you did. And in the meantime, go make a card. Bye.